Dive. You know, sometimes it's amazing where a simple question can lead us.
Mm-hmm.
We got some really interesting stuff from you guys about something called the Mandela Effect.
Okay.
I gotta say, even I was surprised by some of what we found. Basically, the Mandela Effect is this thing where a whole bunch of people, like, misremember the same thing.
Yeah.
Like a detail about a movie, like a historical event, or even how you spell a product's name.
Interesting.
So we've got some excerpts here, one from Very Well Mind and another from Good Housekeeping, to kind of help us figure this whole thing out. So are you ready to dive in and explore this together?
Absolutely. This is one of those topics that makes you wonder, like, can I trust my own brain?
Right. We've all had those moments where we're sure something happened one way and turns out we were totally wrong.
Yeah.
But the Mandela Effect is like a mass memory glitch or something.
Right.
So let's start with where the term even came from. It actually comes from Fiona Broome, a paranormal researcher. She noticed that she and a bunch of other people all had the same false memory about Nelson Mandela's death.
It's fascinating that something so specific, like a historical event, led to this whole exploration of, like, collective false memories. Broome even created a website to keep track of other examples. And, well, the concept just blew up from there.
It totally did. So let's get to some of those examples, because this is where it gets really weird.
Okay.
For example, how many of you Star Wars fans out there totally remember Darth Vader saying, "Luke, I am your father"?
Oh, yeah.
Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen it, but the actual line is, "No, I am your father."
Interesting.
And this is where things get really interesting, like from a psychological standpoint.
Right.
This is a perfect example of something called a false memory. Our memories aren't like perfect recordings, Every time we access a memory, we're actually reconstructing it.
Yeah.
And it's surprisingly easy for errors to creep in during that whole process. It's like our brains are always editing and revising our memories, even if we don't realize it.
Yeah.
But why do so many people get this line wrong?
Well, think about it. Luke, I am your father, is shorter, more powerful, and kind of fits the drama of the scene better, right? It's like our brains have simplified the memory so it's easier to remember, but less accurate.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. Our brains want to cut to the chase and make it more exciting. Okay, but here's another one that messed me up. Remember that movie Shazam with Sinbad as a genie?
The Sinbad Genie movie.
Yeah.
The one that doesn't exist.
Exactly. I could have sworn I saw it as a kid. I even remember, like, certain scenes, but nope, never happened.
This is a great example of something called confabulation. Sometimes our brains, they try to make sense of information that's, like, incomplete or jumbled up. So they fill in the blanks with stuff that seems plausible, even if it's totally made up.
So our brains are like storytellers, making things up to make the story better.
Yeah, exactly. In this case, there are a few things that might have caused this. Sinbad was a popular comedian in the 90s. He had that larger-than-life personality. So him as a genie, not a huge leap.
Plus, wasn't there another 90s movie called Kazam with Shaq as the genie? Maybe people got them mixed up?
That's definitely possible. Plus, Sinbad actually did dress up like a genie a bunch of times for, like, events and TV promotions.
Right.
So there are these bits and pieces of information floating around. Over time, they get mashed together and turn into this whole memory of a movie that was never real.
Okay, so our brains are telling stories, making stuff up, filling in the gaps. But what about this? Remember Pikachu, the little electric Pokemon? I always thought it had a black tip on its tail. Turns out it doesn't. Just yellow. Why do I remember that?
That's interesting. It might have something to do with visual priming. Think about it. Pikachu's ears have those black tips.
Yeah.
Our brains, like, patterned. Right? So maybe they accidentally, like, copied those black tips from the ears to the tail.
Yeah. So our brains are playing connect the dots, but sometimes they connect them wrong.
Yeah. Plus, there are so many other Pokemon with black-tipped tails. Maybe seeing them also made us more likely to misremember Pikachu's tail.
Right. Speaking of things we misremember all the time, let's talk about brands.
Okay.
This is going to blow your mind. Jiffy, peanut butter. Febreze, air freshener. Oscar Mayer, hot dogs. Fruit Loops, cereal. Tell me you've never mispronounced or misspelled at least one of those.
Oh, I definitely have. And the interesting thing is, these mistakes often follow a pattern. For example, Jif sounds a lot like Jiffy, which is a word we use all the time to mean something quick.
Right.
It's almost like our brains are choosing the most familiar, easy way, even if it means changing the spelling or how we say it.
So our brains are like, hey, Jiffy sounds right. It must be right.
Exactly. Our brains are efficiency machines. Sometimes that means taking shortcuts, even if those shortcuts lead to, mistakes.
And what about those Fruit Loops? Or should I say Fruit Loops?
The Fruit Loops problem. Our brains like to oversimplify language, applying common spelling rules, even when they don't fit.
Yeah.
Fruit is a way more common spelling than fruit, so our brains kind of gravitate towards that.
And Oscar Mayer, that one gets me every time.
Oscar Mayer, with an A. Another case of oversimplification. Mayer, it just feels right, you know?
Yeah.
It's closer to how we say it. But it's actually Mayer. These brand name Mandela effects really show how easy it is to mess up our memories, especially with mispronunciations and misspellings that we hear over and over again.
It's like a giant game of telephone with language. Each time the message gets passed on, it gets a little more distorted. But pop culture and brand names are just the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole other category of Mandela effects out there. The ones about history. Get ready. Things are about to get even more interesting.
Let's go back in time for a second and think about affecting this image that might not be so accurate after all. You know that classic picture of Henry VIII, the one where he's holding that giant turkey leg?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That one's so vivid, like you can practically taste the food just looking at it.
Well, here's the thing. That painting doesn't actually exist.
Really?
It's a great example of how, what we think we know about history can actually change our memories of it.
Wait, are you serious? That iconic image of Henry VIII, the one we all remember from, history class, is totally made up.
Seems like it. There's no painting out there that matches that description.
Wow.
And this is where confabulation gets really interesting.
Okay.
It's not just about filling in missing pieces in our memories. It's also about how our brains create stories that fit with what we already believe.
So because we think of Henry VIII as this larger-than-life king who loved to eat, our brains created this memory of the turkey leg painting.
Exactly. Our brains love to tell a good story, and sometimes that means adding details that fit the narrative, even if they're not real.
Okay, now I'm starting to question everything I thought I knew about history. What other historical facts might just be figments of our imagination?
Well, how about this one? Think about where New Zealand is on a map.
Southeast of Australia, right? Pretty simple.
You got it. But a lot of people swear they remember it being northeast of Australia. And not just a few people. We're talking about a whole bunch of folks who are, totally convinced.
That's so strange. It really makes you wonder if there's more to it than just, a bad memory, right?
It does. And this brings us to a big question. What's the internet's role in all of this? We know that false information can spread online super fast. And it's easy to see how online communities dedicated to the Mandela Effect, they can create echo chambers where people just keep reinforcing each other's wrong memories.
So the internet is making these memory glitches even worse.
You could say that. It's a bunch of things coming together. You've got how unreliable our memories can be, then how quickly things spread online, and, people's natural tendency to look for information that supports what they already believe.
Confirmation bias. We like to find those online groups where everyone agrees with our misrememberings, which just makes us think we're right, even if we're not.
Exactly. And confirmation bias can be really powerful with the Mandela Effect. Think about finding a forum where, hundreds of people are talking about remembering New Zealand being in a totally different spot. You'd start to feel like you're in on some secret knowledge, even if it's just a shared delusion.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, so we've got confabulation, confirmation bias, and the internet making everything louder. Let's go back to pop culture for a minute. Think about Curious George swinging through the jungle. Did he have a tail? I'm pretty sure he did. I mean, most monkeys do, right? Seems logical.
Well, get ready for this. Curious George never had a tail. He's always been tailless.
What? No way! I swear he had a tail. I can practically picture it.
And that's exactly why the Mandela Effect is so fascinating. These false memories, they feel incredibly real. But in this case, it's likely that, because we assume monkeys have tails, our brains just, added that detail even if it never existed.
Back to our brains making stories that fit what we expect. Okay, hit me with another one.
All right, how about this? That scene in Casablanca where Ingrid Bergman says, "Play it again, Sam."
Oh, I love that scene. So classic, so romantic.
Here's the thing, though. She never says those exact words.
Wait, what?
The closest she gets is, "Play it once, Sam."
Hold on. Are you telling me one of the most famous movie lines ever doesn't actually exist?
It's a perfect example of how pop culture references and, parodies, can warp our memories over time. In this case, Woody Allen's movie, Play It Again, Sam, from 1972, probably cemented that misquote in our minds.
Wow. The line between what's real and what we remember is getting blurrier and blurrier. Speaking of blurred lines, remember those cartoon bears, the Berenstain Bears?
The Berenstain Bears.
Berenstain. Wait a minute, are you saying it's spelled with an A?
Always has been. It's one of the most debated Mandela effects, and it really shows how easily we mess up spellings in our memory, especially when those misspellings sound more, well, normal.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. We've gone through so many examples, but I still really want to know why this happens. Is it just bad memory, or is there something like more mysterious going on?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? Let's look at some of the psychological reasons behind the Mandela effect.
I'm all ears.
One key idea is false memories. As we've talked about, our memories aren't perfect recordings. Every time we remember something, we're basically reconstructing it, and mistakes can happen during that process.
So our memories are more like rough drafts than like the final version?
Yeah.
What else?
There's also misleading post-event information. This is the idea that things we learned after an event can actually change how we remember that event.
So learning something new can rewrite our memories.
In a way, yeah. Like imagine you saw a car accident, right?
Mm-hmm.
Later, you hear someone talking about it and they say the car ran a red light, even though you didn't actually see that. It's possible that detail, even if it's wrong, could become part of your memory.
Whoa, that's kind of creepy. Our memories are always being shaped and reshaped by new information.
It is a good reminder that memory is way more changeable than we think.
Okay, that makes sense. Are there any other ways our brains are messing with us?
We also have something called priming. That's how being exposed to certain things can influence our thoughts and actions, even if we don't realize it. With the Mandela effect, maybe seeing common misspellings or mispronunciations, like over and over, could make us more likely to remember things the wrong way.
So even seeing Jiffy written down a bunch, even if it's to debunk the Mandela effect, could make us more likely to remember it that way, even though it's wrong.
Exactly. Our brains are always making connections. Sometimes those connections take us down the wrong path, memory-wise.
All right, so we've got false memories, misleading information, and priming. Anything else?
There's one more theory that people talk about a lot, but it doesn't have any real scientific evidence to back it up.
Ooh, sounds interesting. Tell me more.
It's the idea of alternate realities. Some folks believe that the Mandela effect is proof that, like, parallel universes or timelines are merging, and that's why some people remember things from these other realities.
Whoa, alternate realities. That's some serious sci-fi stuff. But is there any proof of that?
It's a cool idea, but it's just speculation for now. There's no scientific evidence that alternate realities exist. And, as we've discussed, the Mandela effect can be explained by things we already know about psychology.
So it's more likely that our brains are playing tricks on us than that we're jumping between dimensions.
Yeah, that's the more realistic explanation. But it's important to recognize why people like those beliefs and how they can affect how we see things. The idea of alternate realities, for some people, it adds a sense of wonder and mystery to things. And it can be hard to let go of those beliefs, even if the evidence says otherwise.
It's like the ultimate mystery with a side of existential crisis. But you're right, it's probably best to stick with explanations that science can back up. So what does all this tell us about memory and how our brains actually work?
The Mandela effect is a good reminder that memory isn't fixed or permanent. It's always changing, shaped by our experiences, beliefs, and even things we see online. It also shows how powerful suggestion can be, and how easy it is for outside stuff to influence our memories.
So we need to be more careful about what we believe our memories are telling us and realize that they can be biased and distorted. That's a little scary, isn't it? What if we can't even trust our own memories?
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
But memory isn't just about remembering everything perfectly. It's about creating a story that helps us understand our experiences, even if that story isn't 100% accurate.
I guess that's a little comforting. So the Mandela effect isn't necessarily a bad thing.
Not at all. It's a really interesting way to see how complex the human mind is and how we make sense of the world.
This whole conversation has been so eye-opening. I feel like I understand how my brain works so much better now and how easy it is for our memories to get messed with. But there's one thing I'm still wondering about.
What's that?
Why does the Mandela effect seem to be so common now in the internet age? Is it just because we're more connected and sharing information more easily? Or is there something more to it?
That's a great question, and one that's worth exploring more. Let's dive into that in the next part.
So we've talked about all these examples of the Mandela effect and like what might be going on in our brains, but why does it feel like it's happening more now, with the internet and everything?
Yeah.
Is the internet making this whole thing worse?
It's definitely a big factor. Think about it. Before the internet, if you had a weird memory that, didn't make sense, you might tell a few people and that's it. But now, with online forums, social media, websites all about the Mandela effect, these false memories can, spread super fast.
So the internet is like a breeding ground for these memory glitches.
Exactly. It's a few things combined. Our memories are naturally kind of fuzzy, right?
Yeah.
Then you add how fast stuff spreads online, and people just naturally want to find information that backs up what they already believe.
Right, confirmation bias. We look for groups online where everyone agrees with our misrememberings, and that makes us even more sure we're right.
Exactly. And the Mandela effect, it really plays into that. Imagine finding a forum where tons of people are talking about Jiffy peanut butter. They all remember it that way. You'd start to doubt yourself, maybe they're right and I've been wrong this whole time.
It's like the power of the group takes over. Your own memory doesn't feel as reliable because everyone else is remembering the same wrong thing.
That feeling of a shared experience can be really powerful, even if what you're sharing is, not true.
So the internet is definitely making these Mandela effects spread and stick around. But is there any actual research to back that up?
There's a study mentioned in that Very Well Mind article. Researchers looked at, over 100,000 news stories shared on Twitter over 10 years, and they found that fake news spread way faster and further than the truth.
Wow, really? That's kind of scary.
It is. And it shows how easily misinformation can spread online. That might explain why the Mandela effect seems so big in the digital age.
It's that whole game of telephone thing again, where the information gets more and more distorted.
Exactly. It's really important to think critically and be careful about what you see online. We got to be more picky about the information we take in and question what we think we know.
Even though we've been debunking these Mandela effect examples, part of me still finds it all really fascinating.
I get it. There's something really compelling about the mystery of it.
What if we are seeing glimpses of other realities? Or what if somehow our minds are actually shaping reality?
Those are really interesting ideas.
Yeah.
But as much as we might like those ideas, it's important to remember what we know about psychology and how our memories can be tricky.
You're right. I love a good conspiracy theory, but sometimes the simplest answer is the right one.
And in this case, the simplest answer is that our memories aren't perfect. Lots of things can affect them, including what we see online.
Well, there you have it. The Mandela Effect. It's a fascinating look into how our brains work and how the internet can change what we think is real.
Yeah.
If there's one big takeaway from this deep dive, it's that we got to be a little skeptical of our own memories. And remember that they can be biased and distorted.
For sure.
So, next time you're arguing with someone about whether it's Jiffy or Jif, take a breath and remember our memories aren't always as accurate as we think.
And hey, maybe that uncertainty is kind of cool.
I like that. A little bit of mystery. Thanks for joining us on this mind-bending journey into the Mandela Effect.
It's been fun exploring this with you.
Until next time, keep those brains thinking and don't always trust your memories.
Thank you for joining CMF Conspiracies podcast. What do you think about the topic we covered today? Comment below with your thoughts on this subject. If you have a conspiracy you wish for us to deep dive into, please send your topic to our email address or leave it in the comments. Thank you again for watching. Like and subscribe for more content like this.